We are starting into this meeting here, a regular council meeting of Weyburn City Council. We ask everyone to simply make sure that their cell phones are shut off as we were going to start into our meeting. Tonight we have a very large house here as we have some of the interest here in one of our agendas that is coming up. Before we start into this, I just want to make mention that Mr. Chessel is not here with us tonight due to a death in his family, and we just wish to make note that we, the council, are with his family and himself during this time that as he sort things out. The first thing on the agenda, what we want to talk about, is the approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting, of the strategic planning priorities meeting held on October 10th, 2017. Do we have a motion?
I'll move that, Your Worship.
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Second. All in favor? Carried. Forward. Additions to the agenda?
Yes, Your Worship. We have one delegation, outdoor rink, Gordon Miles Place, Ryan Burney.
And plus two more? And the delegation consists of 3 different speakers?
Yes, Your Worship. There will be 3 altogether speaking on their behalf.
And we will put that under number 4, so 4A. Any other ones? With that, we will, do we have a motion for acceptance?
Your Worship, I'll make a motion for those additions.
Your Worship, I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor? Forward. There are no public hearings and notices. And with that, we have our original communications and delegations. The first speaker that we have here is Ryan Burney. If you would please come forward. Thank you. You have 15 minutes. Go ahead.
I got a lot of material to cover in 15 minutes, boss, so I'll try to be quick. First off, good evening, everyone. My name is Ryan Burney. I live on 1846 Gordon Miles Place. Myself and a huge group of supporters are here with the objective to get the outdoor rink passed once again in Gordon Miles Place. A few of the history around the rink. Last year we seek permission from City Council to build the rink on the west side of Gordon Miles Place Park. It was approved. We then constructed the rink size specific to be installed into the west side of Gordon Miles Place. We then flooded. We had a huge volunteer group help us. As you can see, most of them are here tonight. Lots of support from the neighbors. There is a signed petition in the back of your package that you just received from us with the support names that everybody agreed to and supported last year. If you want to quickly go over that and note the addresses, and there's a highlighted one on the back page there as well. After the construction was done, thank you to DC Construction, DFA Transport. Numerous people are in the room. Volunteer groups, oil field guys, board members from the oil show, minor hockey members, board members from minor hockey. Everybody came together on my driveway, Danny Clark's driveway. We constructed the rink. November 4th of last year, we installed the rink boards. It took us 1 day. It went fairly flawless. We did not hit any sprinkler lines. We did not do any damage to anybody's fences, properties, back alleys, power lines, underground sprinklers, underground power lines, play structures, anything. The install went very smooth. After the boards were stood, we then installed, as promised in the agreement, a liner system. This was installed to prevent any damage to the grass in the city park. I'm not sure if any of the council members or Mr. Mayor, you've had a chance to drive by the city park this spring, summer, or fall, but the grass is in very good shape. I think most of the people in the room will agree. We put the liner in, we then got DFA Transport to bring water in. It took right around 11 loads, I think, 330 cubes roughly. We put about 6 inches of water in, let it freeze, 6 inches of water in, let it freeze. There's some pictures you'll see in the package. The south side of the rink is quite elevated. So the north side beside my house is on flat ground. The boards actually touch the ground. By the time we get to the south end of the park, we're actually elevated 24 inches. So there's 24 inches of ice on the south side and about 4 to 6 inches of ice on the north side. So there's quite a bit significant elevation problems as we move south in that park. Once we got the ice going, December 5th, we had 8 kids come skate on it. The ice was smooth. They had a lot of fun, and I guess the rest of the story with kid usage, to throw some numbers out, we roughly had 150 people Christmas Day use the rink. We flooded 7 times that day. That would probably be the busiest day of the year. Boxing Day was a close second. All throughout Christmas holidays, it was very, very busy and a lot of fun. I'd now like to turn your attention towards a letter. Weyburn, I pulled this off the website, off the agenda. Roy Hardy, City Manager, Claude Morin. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to read the letter, but it's page 1 and 2 in the package. I'd like a chance to address some of the issues stated in this letter. I'm finding them a little bit, well, anyway, I'll address them. First issue involves the area of the park in which the rink was located. Initially, 2 locations were proposed. The rink on the east and west side along the east-west basis along the lane, on the south side of the park, and orienting it on the north-south side basis along the west side of the park. So the reason that we put the rink where it is today, which is on the west side, so if you refer to the structure page, it looks like this. I believe it's page 3 in the package. If you turn it a little bit on landscape, you'll see that northeast, southwest. Positioning of the rink was actually fairly well thought out. The reason we didn't go to the south side is because of elevation issues. The green boxes on this page represent SAS power boxes, I believe, SaskTel boxes, and maybe some cable, Shaw or something, but it's actually fairly busy with those green boxes on the south side and on the east side of the park. Now, when we picked the west side, we looked at drainage and we looked at power boxes. We also looked at physical size of the rink. We wanted to get the rink as big as possible. The reason we need the rink as big as possible, the Zamboni, actually every Zamboni only has a 17-foot turning radius. Okay, so the boards that we constructed have a radius of 15 feet. So I'm actually two feet short already to turn the Zamboni inside the boards. I don't know if you guys have watched the movie Austin Powers or not, but he gets crammed in the hallway there. That's kind of how I got to flood the rink, as is. Anyway, so we picked the west side for sizing reasons, draining reasons, power box reasons, and we constructed it there. I've been approached by numerous individuals to say, why don't you move the rink to the south side? Here's the issues I have with the south side. The orange box represents the rink going on the south side of the park. My garage is labeled on the sheet. Ryan Burney's house, that's where I parked the Zamboni. The only place I had damage on the park grass was the first 6 feet from street to rink. So I did have to fertilize, I did rake, I did hand water it with my own garden hose to bring the grass back. I'm very afraid that if I do have to drive the Zamboni 150 feet across the park, it's going to do a lot more damage to the grass. Also, there's not enough room. As you can see, the play structure in the center of this page, the size of the rink right now, without being in the back alley, will interfere with the play structure. I'm 52 feet wide. It's 47 foot wide from the edge of the gravel in the back alley to the play structure. There's, I'm going to say, a hard-mounted reindeer or deer in the middle of that play structure that would have to come out if we did go to the south side. The other main concern in the City of Weyburn letter is lighting. Now, there's little orange arrows on the sheet that represents placement. All the lighting that was installed in last year's rink was facing directly east. Okay? Please note where 1844 house is. Please note the direction of the arrows, facing east. Now, if I was to move the rink, as stated in the city letter, it says lighting is an issue. If I was to move the rink to the south side, where would the lights be? They would either be on the north side of the orange line or the south side of the orange line. Okay, if we put lighting on the north side, faced it south, there's 4 houses. Right where the word south is, there's 4 houses that back that side of the rink. They'd be in direct contact of lighting. If I was to put the lighting on the south side, facing north, I'm in semi-direct contact with 1844 house. Right? The lights are going to face north, he's to the northwest. The lighting is actually going to get worse if we move the rink to the south. Now, I don't know how many hockey players, hockey people, hockey families we have in this room right now. When you go to a skating rink, you jump on the ice, you grab your sticks and gloves, right? Where are the nets? The nets are on the end boards. If we were to move the rink on the south side of the park, where's the net going to be? The net is going to be on the west side. All the slap shots, all the kids shooting against the end walls that is supposedly creating a noise issue is now going to be directly on the west side. Please note where 1844 house is. It's on the west side. Where the rink was currently placed last year is by far the best place to place it again this year for sizing reasons, lighting reasons, and noise reasons. Now, one thing we can improve on as a volunteer group, noise. I only took snow up to the back of the boards about 1 foot high. The boards are 4.5 feet high. I believe that if we push snow right up to the top of the boards, it's going to create an insulation barrier, also help with sound. Again, we have netting all the way around the boards. There's no risk of pucks flying to neighbors' houses, breaking windows other than my own, hitting houses, hitting people outside the rink, where it's basically non-existent once the netting's up. Last year's city council meeting, I proposed plexiglass. I then realized that was probably a bad decision because of noise. That's where your noise comes from in a rink. It's not pucks off the boards, it's pucks off the glass. We then made the decision to go to netting. Netting is silent. When a puck hits netting, you cannot hear it. Is there any questions so far on location?
You have about 5 minutes left. Speakers can take over.
I'll just quickly go through outdoor rink statistics in Saskatchewan, page 3. Weyburn, I pulled all the cities across Saskatchewan, and Weyburn is by far in the basement of how many outdoor rinks we have per how many residents we have. Quickly glance on that sheet. The top one, Swift Current, population 15,000, 11 outdoor rinks, one outdoor rink for every 1,400 residents. Weyburn, without the Gordon Miles Place rink, would be one outdoor rink per 11,000 residents. With it, we're still in the basement, 5,435 residents. I don't know if my population stats are absolutely bulletproof. They're off the internet, and they're probably a little bit behind. Page 4 of the package, lighting issues. Here's an interesting picture of 1844 with a street light. This was taken 2 nights ago at 9:40 p.m. I'll please note how bright it is at 9:40 when it's pitch black out. I'm just wondering if there's any complaints about the street lights causing lighting pollution, as stated in the letter. Any questions so far? Yes, sir.
On your drawing of the location, the rink that you have to the south on the orange is substantially bigger than the rink that you
Yeah, I did it pretty quick on paint. So from the corner of the play structure to the back alley is 47 feet. I'm 52 feet wide. So the southwest corner of the play structure, it is built on an angle. That's why it's kind of not to scale, is that play structure is kind of a weird octagon shape in the middle of the park. It's not a perfect square, it's not a perfect rectangle, it's not a stop sign, it's quite, it's a unique shape. So it does, I'm 52 feet wide from the southwest corner of the play structure to the back alley, where I believe the power lines are buried, is 47 feet, I'm 52 feet wide.
Yeah, and the length is quite a bit longer, so I believe.
Yeah, there's actually lots of length there. Length isn't an issue, it's actually width. As soon as I fall below 52 feet wide, it rules out the Zamboni. As soon as I rule out the Zamboni, then you're back to shoveling, flooding. The maintenance to the rink goes through the roof, right? A lot of people commented on the shape of the rink last year and the condition of the ice, and that was due to the fact that we had hot water in a Zamboni. Also in the letter, it talks about timing. How long should the rink be open? Last year it was agreed upon 11 p.m. Was the time picked. The reason we picked 11 p.m. Is the noise bylaw. The city of Weyburn has a bylaw that says quiet time between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. So we figured it just made sense to follow that bylaw. Another issue with the letter, a clear understanding that the rink is unstructured, recreation use only, and that organized practice games are prohibited. I'll now turn your attention to what's labeled the Swift Current Outdoor Rink page. Swift Current is definitely leading the way in outdoor rinks. Their program is quite outstanding. Right at the bottom of the page, highlighted in Swift Current, the outdoor rinks are also available for rental outside of these times. Click here for facility rates. I'll now turn your attention to the Regina, City of Regina page. The following outdoor ice sites are available for public use on a first-come, first-service basis, unless previously reserved for a community or private use. I had a family approach me last year. They wanted to know if they could round up 12 kids, shut the outdoor rink down for an hour, and have a birthday party skate. I was totally in favor for that. I heard some negative reviews last year that it should just be open, first come, first serve. My fix to this, I want to practice with our novice hockey team, as do a lot of the other coaches in Weyburn. They want to practice on this ice surface. The fix to all of this is back to the structure or the diagram page, and this is what every single rink in Swift Current does. They build a skating pad right beside the rink. So if you look at the diagram on the north side of the diagram, right against my house and my fence, I propose that we do a skating pad. I'm not exactly sure what size it's going to be. So what happens is 3-year-old kids show up learning how to skate, 5-year-old kids show up in their hockey gear, 4-year-old kids, and we got 6 or 7 15-year-old kids out there, right? Ripping slap shots, doing some drills, hanging out. What I'm proposing is me and the volunteer group, we actually build a second pad on the north side of the park, north of the play structure, with a liner system to rid the congestion and the conflicts on the outdoor rink. If there's a hockey practice going on, if minor hockey phones and say, hey, I want to do a hockey practice, I'll go out, put a fresh flood on. I'll make sure the skating pad is suitable for skating. Minor hockey teams, they do their 1 hour practice on the ice surface. If there's other kids there during that time, they get to use the skating pad for an hour.
Okay, that's if you could do just a bit of a wrap up.
Okay, I'm actually going to turn the mic over to Mr. Mark Missel. He's a neighbor. He also backs onto the Gordon Miles Place Park. In reference to the diagram, he lives directly east. He's going to come up and say a few words about noise and lighting.
Yeah, I'm just going to really quick give
Just
my...
first off, state your name, please.
Oh, sorry, my name is Mark Massal. I live 671 Barbara Crescent, directly east of the outdoor rink. Just really quick, I want to state that those lights face directly east, right in my backyard. They face into my living room, my bedroom, my bathroom, and you don't notice them. I have my blinds down in the wintertime, as do most people at nighttime, and you don't notice a thing. I don't hear a noise at nighttime. There might be the odd time where you hear a kid having fun, scoring some goals. That's what it's all about. I also think that the position it's in is in the best position because I have 3 little boys who use it. Ryan has graciously opened up his garage for anybody to use his garage to get dressed in. I mean, come inside, warm up. He had hot chocolate there half the time, sitting there for the kids to use. It's literally a 10-foot walk from your skates, from his garage to the ice pad. And that's the best thing about it. I mean, the location is perfect. I live directly behind the lights. I hear the noise. I see the lights. It doesn't bother me. So I just want to get my two cents in there real quick.
Next.
Shane Pollock, live at 1850 Gordon Miles, so Ryan's neighbor. For me, it's just a little bit of my childhood, I guess, born and raised in Swift Current. So actually Riverdene, if you look at that page, we were just straight up the hill from Riverdene. So I spent a ton of time there as a kid, you know, skates on the stick, walk down to the rink. Dad yells at me to come home for supper, go back after supper. And when we first moved to Weyburn, I was really surprised that we kind of only had one outdoor rink here for the size of the community that we are and a hockey city. So it was great to see this outdoor rink, and it was great to see those kids walking with their skates, coming after school, come home from work. There was always kids there. So, and you can see by the support today, it'd just be terrible to take that away from them. So that's all. Thank you.
I just got 2 more main points to cover, boss. Just so everybody knows, I work at Element Technical Services. I'm one of the founders of the company, VP of Operations. There's some more Element people. I was approached by 3 different vendors last year. Once they seen the CTV News skit on this outdoor rink, they wanted to give us $25,000 to put permanent concrete in, permanently mount the boards, put basketball nets, and permanent lighting. I actually denied them because of the fact of the negative feedback that we were receiving. And I do believe that's an issue in Weyburn as an oil field representative. We got agriculture representatives here. We got construction representatives here. People want to donate money to good development in this town, and I think the negative feedback that we receive is stopping it. People are nervous to do it. People don't want to donate money because of the complaints, or I guess the red tape that we got to go through to make good projects like this happen. So to wrap things up, we are requesting that the Gordon Miles Place rink get approved in the exact same place it was last year. We are willing to go down to a 10:30 curfew time. I'll kick the skaters off at 10, and that'll give me a half an hour to flood the ice for the next morning. So 10 p.m., skaters off. I'll shut the lights off for 10 minutes so they all go home. Then that gives me from 10 to 10:30 to flood for the next day. There was a curfew issue in there. I hope that helps. Anyway, we're seeking that one of the councillors make the motion for the Gordon Miles Place rink to get erected in the same place as it did last year, with a half an hour reduction in curfew time. And we're looking for approval.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And at this time, that will be brought up at the, it'll be a few more minutes within the meeting that we get into the new business and talking about that. But we thank you for your presentation,
Okay.
everyone.
Thank you all for coming, by the way.
Yes.
Great
Thank
to
you all
see.
for attending this. There, too. With that, we're going to, as I said, it'll be just a few things that are going to move forward here, probably about another 20 minutes or so before we get to that actually, the portion where we're discussing again on the new business. Right now, we've got the report to council. We have the police commission report. Mr. Van Betju.
Thank you, Your Worship. Monday, October 16th at 4 p.m., a regular meeting of the Weyburn Police Commission was held. In the correspondence, Chief Pritchard brought forward some information on the Canadian Centre for Child Protection. Then the reports, the Mayor's report. Chief Pritchard presented the Mayor's report for the month of September. In comparison to the same month of 2016, crimes against persons increased by 4, crimes against property increased by 6, and total calls for service decreased by 23. In the verbal report Chief Pritchard advised the board he requires a resolution of the board to designate the Chief of Police as the Freedom of Information Officer for the Weyburn Police Service. Moved by Don Eamon and seconded by Councillor Bailey that the Chief of Police be appointed as the Freedom of Information Officer for Weyburn Police Service. The accounts payable report for September was presented. Chief Pritchard presented his overtime report for the third quarter. The overtime hours have decreased by 15%, and Chief Pritchard forecast a further reduction of between 25% and 40% by the year end. The Weyburn Humane Society report for September 2017 was presented. In unfinished business, Chief Pritchard provided a year-to-date up to September 27, 2017 budget report, and the board discussed the 2018 budget. In new business, Chief Pritchard advised that he has received direction from the city manager that moving forward the process on bylaws, City Council is responsible to amend and pass bylaws, and if the board has any bylaws they wish to see developed or amended, then the board would submit to the city manager, as bylaw development and amendments is a job for city administration to provide to council. And the meeting was adjourned at 5:15.
Very good. Any questions? Moving forward to the Parks Board, Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Parks Board met this past Tuesday, October 17th in City Hall. The minutes from the previous meeting were passed and carried as presented. Additions to the agenda was the pathway refurbishment, and that was discussed later on in our meeting. Weyburn Opportunity Road Race report was not present as Glenn Rogers was not able to make the meeting. Multiculturalism Day and the Parks report, the committee held their wrap-up meeting at the end of September. There were 21 vendors in total and an estimated 750 people in attendance for that multicultural day in Riverside Park. It was very successful and very well attended, even though the wind was blowing quite prominently that day again, but it was a great event. The Parks Board would like to continue to work with the United Way in this event to grow it in the coming years. The board would like to propose a date for a planning meeting and begin promptly promoting this event early in 2018. Asupka Upgate, the Parks Coordinator, Linda Procart, attended the Asupta meeting in Swift Current on September 21st. The group toured the city to see what new innovations the Swift Current has undertaken, and one which included an addition to a pet columbarium in their cemetery. At the meeting, Linda reported on upcoming Winterfest events and our dependency on good weather for outdoor activity. And as you know, Your Worship, we've not been able to do our full schedule of events 3 out of the last 4 years. It's either no snow or too cold. So we're looking at going in and doing some more indoor activities if they can take place, and we're working on getting that. It was moved by Laurie Schmidt and seconded by Diana Wu that the Parks Board host Winterfest on Family Day, Monday, February 19th, 2018. And that's the day that we usually hold it. So keep your calendar open for that. It's a day off school for everybody. And we'll have a lot of activities going on all over the city that day for children and adults to participate in. River Park entrance. The River Park entrance is in need of an upgrade. Plans to remove the existing 3-tier railroad tie terrace and replace it with a 1-meter-high single-tier retaining wall. The board was also discussed the possibility of addition of entrance pillars and with a new signage for the park's entry. We have a beautiful facility down there with the water park now there, very well used. We need to dress it up a little bit. 2 years ago, there was a concept drawing prepared and designed for the park entrance, and our Claude will bring that back to the board for review and further discussion. Superintendent Claude Moore advised the board that there is a section of Signal Hill Trail that is in need of resurfacing, and we're looking at that also for a next year's project. The good news in all of this upgrading and everything, that there is money available in the Tatawa Reserve Fund for either the River Park entrance or upgrades to the trail, or a combination of both that we will work on. So we made a motion then to put this into the recommendations for the 2018 timeframe to look at this for budget purposes and for work to be done next year. In 2018, Tataqua Parkway calendar entries were in. We had approximately 40 photos submitted for our second year of calendar, and so they should be available by mid-November, the end of November, for people to have City of Weyburn Parks calendar in their home or in their business. So we look forward to that, and they will be available at City Hall probably by the end of November for sure. And the meeting was adjourned at 1:05, Your Worship, and our next meeting will be called as the chair sees fit to call it.
Any questions? Mr. Mickle?
Thank you, Your Worship. Back to Police Commission. Councilor Van Betje, was anything mentioned at Police Commission about the 30-mile speed zone in front of the schools at your October 16th meeting?
No, Councillor Mickle, it was not. No.
Is that going to be brought up in the November meeting? A recommendation back to council?
Actually, Your Worship, I took minutes at that meeting, and I believe that the chief and the city manager are going to discuss it.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question about, first off, when you're getting back to this Parks Board, Swift Current is putting in a pet columbarium?
Yes.
They are? And this is one of the things I know that people may think, but there's been requests that have come to me to look at that. So we'll ask the manager to speak to Parks as to whether there's an area that there would be able to be a pet cemetery in the cemetery part there. So, go ahead. Ms. Moran?
It's not something we've ever discussed, Your Worship, but I do believe there would be space available if we desired to proceed in that manner.
Just a small little area off to the side that they could... in the
Yes, like I
corner of the
said,
setting.
I believe space would be available. However, it's not something we've discussed in the past.
But that would be something we should look at possibly and bring it back to council.
For sure, we can look into it and find out what some other communities are doing and perhaps report back to council in that regard.
Okay, thank you. House? All right, I'm just thinking that there was something else that I was going to ask, but it'll come. Other than that, we'll state that these have been received and at this point in time. Go on to the consent agenda, cash activity report.
Thank you, Worship. I'm pleased to make a motion that the following items on the consent agenda be accepted as presented. Cash activity report, September 2017, and tax collection report, September 2017.
I'll second that, Your Worship.
All in favor? Carried. Tax collection report? That's in, all there? Okay. Now we go to motions. Accounts payable.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a motion here that the purchases in the amount of $460,156.11 from October 6 to October 19, 2017 be passed for payment.
I'll second that motion, Your Worship.
All in favor? Carried unanimously. Development levy bylaw, the notice of public hearing.
Thanks, Your Worship. I just provided a brief report to Council, kind of a continuation of where we're at with the development levy bylaw. On September 25th, Council provided first reading to the bylaw. Then on October 10th, they did a review, had a few requested changes. And before we can actually do a second and final reading to that bylaw, a public hearing must be held according to legislation. So I would put forward, if Council wishes, they may want to set a date tonight, and you could put your public hearing for the next City Council meeting of November 13th. That would give us time to do the public advertising as the requirement of our public notice policy, where I would put it in the paper November 1st and 8th, prior to that meeting. And then if Council chose to, you could do the second and or third reading on November 13th.
Mr. Richards.
Thanks, Your Worship. Danette, do you feel like if we still had some structural changes we wanted to make to what was presented last time, this would give us enough time to do that?
If you have changes, you would probably want to, get those to our city manager as soon as possible. And then if you want, you could certainly bring it back to November 13th just for discussion. However, you cannot do a second and third reading without a public hearing and public advertisement. So if you choose to make more changes, I would recommend then that perhaps you have another look on November 13th, and that would push it back then to the second meeting of November for final reading.
Thank you.
And I would think that you would actually have to look at second and third reading of that, just with the off case that someone in the public talking has some suggestions and some other statements that they want to make, so that we'd have to consider. So you'd most likely would have to do it anyway.
And you could certainly do your public hearing on November 13th and not do the two readings. You just have to have that public hearing, and then you could postpone the final reading to the next meeting.
Mr. Van Betje?
I would suggest that we wait until I think as a councillor myself, I would like to see the changes before the hearing. I think, although it's going to push it back another couple of weeks, I think if we saw the changes for the next council meeting, then we could advertise after that period for the meeting after that and do the second and third reading at that. 4 weeks down the road, I guess it would be, but I don't feel comfortable without seeing the changes. And
do you want to set a date for the public hearing, though, for the 24th then, or the second week in November?
You certainly could tonight, or if you want to wait till the 13th, that still would allow us that time frame to do the advertising for the 24th, just in case It's up to council, though. I mean, if you decide you want to set it tonight, but you could also set your public hearing for the 24th at the 13th meeting. You would have time.
I'd feel better if we set it for the 24th, so we know that it's moving ahead, and then still give you a thing. Or 23rd. 27th, pardon me.
Yeah.
27th? Pardon me?
23rd is council.
23rd is council? Okay, for the 20, just a minute.
No.
Yeah.
27th.
27th, okay. Mr. Mickel,
I'm getting a little confused here with I'm not confused as what we're doing, but the dates. So you want to wait till November 27th to do that?
for the public hearing, yes.
Public hearing? If that's what council wants,
Yes.
I can change the number very simply when I make the motion.
Turn your microphone on.
It's on now. Okay. I'll make a motion, then, your worship, that administration be directed to advertise the public hearing to be held on Monday, November 27th at 5 p.m. for bylaw number 2017-3365, the City of Weyburn Development Bylaw Levy.
Yeah, I'll second that, your worship.
Any more discussion?
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree with Councillor Van Vetu that I think we need to fine-tune this just a little bit more in the next couple of weeks here and bring it back for the first meeting in November. And I'd like that proposal to do that and have the final document ready for the 27th.
If there's no further discussion, all in favor? Carried unanimously. Tax enforcement?
This is just to continue with tax enforcement under the Tax Enforcement Act to acquire title for the properties listed. They've all received their 6-month notice.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'll make a motion that in accordance with the Tax Enforcement Act, Section 22, City Council directs the city assessor not to include in the 2017 tax arrears list any properties in which the arrears do not exceed 1/2 of the immediately preceding, that would be 2016, tax levy with respect to that land.
I'll second that, your worship.
Discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Absenteeism and sick leave policy. Ms. Duckshire, do you wish to speak towards that, please? For our city policy?
Sure, this is a policy that was actually passed originally April 2010, so it is just really an update to legislation that's changed, so just complying with legislation. So it's really just an updated policy.
And just to give what the update is on that,
Yeah, we separated the absenteeism policy and made 2 out of it. Actually, we're going to have an absenteeism policy as well as a paid sick leave policy because all City of Weyburn employees do receive paid sick leave. So, any questions?
Thanks, Your Worship. I'll make a motion that council approve the absenteeism and sick leave policy for the City of Weyburn staff as per the recommendation of the Strategic Planning and Priorities Committee meeting held on October 10th, 2017.
I'll second that, your worship.
any discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. We're now going into the introduction of bylaws. The new business shall be coming up shortly here, but the old introduction of bylaws, we're talking about the Board of Police Commissioners bylaw, in which we are asking for 2 more commissioners to sit on the Board of Police Commission.
Yeah, Your Worship. We spoke about this briefly on October 10th. Council was advised that we'd had an inquiry to consider adding 2 members at large, and Council asked administration to bring back a bylaw to allow another 2 members, so this would increase our members of 4 from 2 members at large to 4 members at large, 2 council members and the mayor. So it would be 2 extra people on the board, and I have a bylaw provided for council if they wish to pass that tonight.
First reading. Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that the bylaw 2017-3366, a bylaw to establish the Board of Police Commissions for the City of Weyburn and to increase the number of citizens on the board from 2 members at large to 4 members at large, be given first reading.
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Discussion?
Yes. Thank you. I just think it's important that we let the public know that by increasing this is just to have more involvement from the community on this board. It's a very challenging board at sometimes, and we just felt that bringing some more of the public to the board would give us a better overview from the city of Weyburn on this particular matter.
All in favor? Carried unanimously.
Your worship, I'd like to make a motion that bylaw 2017-3366, a bylaw to establish the Board of Police Commissions for the City of Weyburn and to increase the number of citizens on the board from 2 members at large to 4 members at large, be given second reading.
I'll second that, Your Worship.
All in favor?
Your worship, I'd like to make a motion that bylaw 2017-3366, a bylaw to establish the Board of Police Commissions for the City of Weyburn and to increase the number of citizens on the board from 2 members at large to 4 members at large, be given 3 readings at this meeting.
I'll second that, Your Worship.
All in favor? Carried unanimously.
Make a motion, Your Worship, that bylaw 2017-3366, a bylaw to establish the Board of Police Commissions for the City of Weyburn and to increase the number of citizens on the board from 2 members at large to 4 members at large, be given 3rd reading and passed.
I'll second that again, Your Worship.
All in favor? Carried unanimously. The next piece of bylaw is the local improvement bylaw. If you would, please.
This is a bylaw to authorize a special assessment with respect to the undertaking of the construction of Recap Asphalt Street. It's from 5th Street Northeast from Souris Avenue to Cotto Avenue.
Your Worship, I'd like to make a motion that bylaw 2017-3367 to authorize a special assessment with respect to the undertaking of construction of Recap Asphalt Street as a local improvement be read a first time. I'll second that, Your Worship.
Discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously.
Your Worship, I'd like to make the motion that bylaw 2017-3367 to authorize a special assessment with respect to the undertaking of construction of Recap Asphalt Street as a local improvement be read a second time. I'll second that.
All in favor?
Your Worship, I'd like to make the motion that bylaw 2017-3367 to authorize a special assessment with respect to the undertaking of construction of Recap Asphalt Street as a local improvement be given a 3rd reading at this meeting. Second that.
All in favor?
Your Worship, I'd like to make the motion that bylaw 2017-3367 to authorize a special assessment with respect to the undertaking of construction of Recap Asphalt Street as a local improvement be read a 3rd time and passed. Second that, Your Worship.
All in favor? The final reading. We're now going on to old business. We have just 2 more things before we get to the Gordon Mile Place. So I thank all the children for their patience here. With this one, the old business is the Queen Street Crossing update. And with this, we have the engineer, Tom Williams, that would like to give us an update as to what happened there. Seeing after we cut down the trees, which we give the parks very good credit for, as we said, we could see almost to McTaggart now. It was done in a very quick and efficient way. So what is our next step here, Mr. Williams?
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. So there you see before your report, I just give you a bit of an update on the previous report that was done. Back in September 6th, I guess Council had asked us to investigate the options for this Queen Street closure. So administration met with Highways in July, and essentially what they said was, if you're willing to participate, they might move it up on the priority list. Otherwise, Weyburn's on their own, because even though it is a Highways, Department of Highways road, they're saying that if you want to do something, that would be their responsibility. So unfortunately, we thought we might be able to tie into the Highway 39 recap project, but that's from 3rd Street to 16th Street, so it's outside our Queen Street area, so there was no cost sharing there. So just as a background, I think when we had this discussion back in July, we were talking about closure of Queen Street, but I think Council had a big, long debate and said that was a non-starter, so we don't want to go back into that discussion. And so that cost of that closure was $25,000, but that wasn't what we looked at. Then, of course, we looked at a one-way access. KGS had done a report for City Council. and that was a $500,000 charge to just partially close Queen Street and do some upgrades on the intersection and put a approved rail crossing with the arms and all our stuff. And then to keep it open with a two-way access, that was a $1.2 million cost. So I think what council had asked me to look at was what other options do we have at that time. So in your package there was a plan that we're essentially going to twin Highway 39 all the way from where it's twinned now to Government Road. So the cost of that twinning, and of course there'd be a left turn lane off of Highway 39, a right turn lane off of Highway 39 going into Queen Street. So this is a pretty major road project, anything else, which would be no different than the Sister Roddy Road and Highway 39 intersection in Estevan, the access into the highway. So we'd get those same improvements and eventually allowed for stacking on the highway. So actually the people, if they saw a train was going there, they would just stay on the highway till they can make the turn, it's safe to go. So the cost of that upgrade was $3.5 million. And that's a very conservative estimate. I added a 20% contingency, the design wasn't done or anything, so I suspect it could be a little bit less, but anyway, that was sort of the cost for that one. So that's just one of the projects, but again, at that July council meeting, there was talk about the Highway 13, Highway 39 intersection, and if we're going to fix Queen Street, are we going to fix that intersection as well? Because if we happen to close Queen Street and make some improvements, we'd push all the traffic to our already a very dangerous intersection. So there was three options that we looked at there. The one option was what Highways had recommended, and essentially they were adding some signs and then some right turn radiuses off of Highway 39 onto Highway 13, probably for about $50,000, but I think that fix is pretty cosmetic. It doesn't solve your safety issue. Then the other one was, in one of the plans we looked at was actually to maybe purchase a part of that trailer court and actually make Highway 13 come into Highway 39 at a 90-degree angle. So that cost was roughly about $2.1 million. Then the city manager asked me to look at a traffic circle maybe at that location, which is a good option because that actually fits within the right-of-way, and that option was $1.5 million. So between the two, I guess you got $1.5 million for the Highway 13-39 intersection and $3.5 million for Highway 39 twinning. So I think what our next step is we go to Highways and say the City of Weyburn is willing to participate up to a certain number and pick a number. If you're 1/3 of the cost, that's $1.6 million and maybe get that prioritized. And then we're ready to go to detailed design if council wishes to go to that detail. So
We have to when that CPA is.
that's quite a ways. We're still 2019, and like I say, cutting those trees down has really helped the sight lines, because I think the city has been proactive and improved the safety there. I think some signs might help now. You got some, we could put some signs up to warn truckers that, be cautious of trains and make sure there's enough stacking distance. That'd be a pretty quick fix. And, we still got a couple years yet, but these projects take a while anyway, so I suggest we get the design sort of done and have that in our back pocket, and then if we can leverage some funding, there's a provincial election coming up, or the federal government can change some things, so. Because it's really Highways' responsibility, not the City of Weyburn, so.
Thanks, Your Worship. Thanks, Tom, for your work on this. I know this has been hard to get kind of anywhere with it. I also heard that the ranking of that Queen Street, we heard here at Council a few times ago, that the ranking of that Queen Street on Canada's Most Dangerous List, or whatever they called it, had changed dramatically from 60-some into 120-some. Is that correct? Do you know?
Well, I know we're in the top 100, which isn't a good thing.
Yeah.
I don't know about the ranking. I think maybe CP has lowered the speeds a little bit and everything else. And again, that's CP's ranking. That's not the provinces or Highways or City of Weyburn. So I think by doing something, you're going to improve that ranking. But I haven't heard that they did change.
We did hear that, and it doesn't matter, but I guess that was prior even to the trees coming out. So I suspect that intersection's been increased greatly again, the safety of it, I guess I should say. And then, like you said, there's still lots we can do before we abandon that crossing. So I guess what I'm saying, Your Worship, is I really support what Tom has brought forward here in terms of a plan, because everybody in the room, I think, can acknowledge that intersection of 13 and 39 is not awesome, regardless of what volume of traffic is going through it. So I think if we could participate in some discussions with the province on the future of that intersection is good.
the circle.
The traffic circle,
Traffic
yes.
circle there, that would mean 13 would be closed?
No, it would just
I mean,
mean-
Queen Street would be closed?
No, I think you do Queen Street to Highway 39 twinning and also the 13 and 39 intersection. I'd make them both the same project.
At a cost of 1.2 and
5 million total between the two of them. And again, very conservative, but
5 million total, okay. So,
Go on.
you good? Any other questions? So then our next step is to ask the province if they would be interested in that?
yeah, I mean, we have these tentative plans now, and, you know, Laura and I can go meet with Highways and say, the city of Weyburn wants to pursue this. I guess what we would like to have is maybe in our back pocket from council, if you'd want to share 1/3, that'd be 1.6 million of the 5 million. That's what Highways said, they'd move that up. Otherwise, they'll just laugh at us and say, we're not planning for that for a while, so.
Your worship, I would prefer that we move this into strategic planning maybe for one session to discuss this and roundtable maybe a little bit further as to what we as council think may be a solution, what we're thinking of from a commitment dollars and cents wise. Myself personally, I'm not totally convinced that any of these are the answer myself, to be honest, so.
Thank you, Worship. I agree. The city of Weyburn is not responsible for the intersection of 1339. That is the government of Saskatchewan. We have to have a sit-down with them. They're talking about twinning the highways. I don't know how far that is away, but we have lots of dialogue to talk about before we start spending money. We have a little bit of action here in outdoor rinks that we're at the bottom of the pit, so if we're going to spend some coin, I think we start doing that, and that's minor compared to this big project here, but I will not support the city of Weyburn putting money in the intersection of 13 and 39, which is a government of Saskatchewan responsibility.
Any further discussion? So with that, you would like to see Mr. Van Beck, you'd like to see that it goes to strategic planning?
Yes, I would, yes.
Would you like to make a motion?
I'd make a motion that we move this to strategic planning possibly for the next council meeting.
Your Worship, I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. The next one that, just before we go at the second last one, before we get to Gordon Mile Place, what we have here is a columbarium proposal. So Mr. Moran has set one before us, and so recently the Parks Department has received a proposal for the establishment of a third columbarium in Hillcrest Cemetery. In 1997, the first columbarium was established through an agreement with Fletcher's Funeral Chapel. In recent years, this original columbarium reached capacity, and in 2016, a second 16-niche columbarium was established through an agreement with another local funeral home, RD Funeral Home, Family Funeral Chapel. FCC is proposing a similar establishment to establish a 33rd 40-niche unit. In brief, under terms of the agreement, Fletcher Funeral Chapels would be responsible for all costs, including the unit purchase, concrete foundation, and installation. They would also be responsible for marketing of the niches, in which the city would receive 35% of the total sales. The city would also retain 100% of the open and closed fees for interments. Upon reaching capacity, the city would assume ownership of the unit. These terms will be identical to the agreement set out between the city and with RD in 2016. There are no exclusivities in that agreement which would prevent the city from entering into an agreement with Fletcher Funeral Chapels. Prior to signing the 2016 agreement, RD was fully aware that FCC was contemplating a third columbarium, and we, Parks, do not anticipate any problems or issues with current development agreements. Though the original columbarium took well over a decade to reach its capacity, there has been significant shift in the interment trends in the intervening years. Cremation interments now exceed traditional interments by a factor of 2 to 1, where the people were true in the late 1990s. Where the opposite, I should say, was true in the late 1990s. The cemetery legal plan was updated in 2017 to recognize that this shift of relocating acreage originally designated for traditional interment to cremations. No problems or issues arose in the 1997 Fletcher Funeral Chapel agreement. The proposal, in addition to the 2016 agreement with RD Funeral Homes, provide capacity at Hillcrest for cremations, niches, interments for the immediate future. It also provides the local funeral homes with an individual marketing opportunities, and the city does not incur any capital costs whatsoever. The Park Department is therefore seeking approval to enter into an agreement with Fletcher Funeral Chapels for the establishment of a third columbarium at Hillcrest Cemetery.
Thank you for that information, Your Worship, and I'd like to make the motion that the council approve the proposal of Fletcher Funeral Chapels for the establishment of a 40-niche unit columbarium at the Hillcrest Cemetery with the terms as provided.
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Question?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yeah, sorry. Hi, Claude. I was just wondering, in my reading sometime in the last year or whatever, I read something about columbariums, and many municipalities have had issues in that the quality of the unit that's been put in there has been poor or substandard. There's no cost to the city at this point, but the city does take over ownership of those units. And they said there's some units that last 25, 30 years, there's other units that last 100 to 200 years. So if it's do we have any standards to the type of unit that is put in place? Because it is quite a cost if 25 years from now we have to go back and replace these units.
I don't have any stats on those particular, that particular question, but I do know that these units that we have installed there, they are all constructed of granite, and I guess I would hazard to say that I don't think longevity would be an issue, like as they are constructed of granite.
Okay, yeah, I think, and some of these, I think it had some metal construction inside them, and some of it even had some wood construction inside of them. And I do recall them saying that the ones that were totally granite, of course, would last a long time because they are total granite. So I was just wondering whether the city actually had any specifications, or you knew the quality of the construction of these units.
I do know that the existing one at the cemetery, excuse me, it does have metal partitions inside, and the outer shell is granite. So I guess I don't have a 100% answer for you at this time on that.
Yeah, and like I said, I hate to bring this up on short notice for you, but I do think it's in the city's best interest to find out what the life expectancy of these units are before we allow them to go in place, as they could, as I say, be quite a capital cost to the city in future years.
I could certainly investigate that and get back to council on that.
So at this time, would you like to table this motion?
If the rest of council approves it, yes, I would like to, yes.
Do you have a seconder from tabling?
I second the original. I should second the table.
I'll second the tabling, Your Worship.
All in favor? So the motion will be tabled to next council meeting, if that, November 13th, if that will give you enough time. All right, now we move on to the Gordon Miles Place outdoor rink. I'm going to read into basically Mr. Morin's report again, at which time afterwards, if those who are directly in the neighborhood because they are directly affected, will be allowed to have a chance to speak. And it'll be a 5-minute speaking on their opinions. But only those who live within the neighborhood have to be in the Gordon Miles neighborhood. So there's where are going to be able to speak. The proposal is this, that as I understand, the neighborhood group represented by Mr. Burney have requested to once again erect the outdoor rink in the Gordon Miles Place mini park as they have done in the past winter of 2016-17 on a trial basis as per the agreement with the City of Weyburn. The Parks Department understands that there's an admirable community endeavor and that many volunteer hours were committed on the behalf of the group in erecting and maintaining the rink. However, the issues did occur as a result of careful consideration should be given prior to approval being provided in the 2017-2018 season. The first issue involves the area of the park in which the rink was located. Initially, 2 locations were proposed, orientating the rink on an east and west basis along the lane, on the south side of the park, and orientating it on the north-south basis along the west side of the park. The west side was chosen based on a recommendation as we had concerns about, and this is written from the parks people, that we had concerns about the spring and drainage being impacted by the rink if situated on the south side location. In retrospect, we were in error over this consideration, and if approved for the coming winter, it should be relocated. Relocation would be possible, mitigated by some of the concerns raised by the adjacent property owner, who was significantly impacted by the placement and operation of the rink last winter. Those concerns include the proximity of the rink to his property line, which created considerable noise, light, pollution issues. It also allowed erratic pucks to routinely end up in his yard, with children subsequently climbing over his fence to retrieve them, with potential injury and damage to his property. On at least one occasion, the Zamboni was operated on the rink after midnight, well after the quiet time as stipulated in the agreement. The closure time of 11 p.m. as per the city noise bylaw and as per the neighbor agreement was too late due to the relatively small confines of the park and the proximity of the neighboring homes. We conclude that though this mini park, due to its small size and location, is not ideally suited for the placement and operation of an outdoor rink, it is evident that it is generally appreciated and well utilized by the community residents. The location is very convenient for a volunteer group who operate it, and no suitable alternative sites are available. The city approves the rink's placement and operation for the winter of 2017-2018. The agreement should include clear and detailed terms to ensure that any negative impact on any individual resident or area residents as a whole is mitigated. These include an earlier closure time of 9:30 p.m. to ensure light and noise pollution does not disturb the neighborhood, signage predominantly displayed at the rink's entrance detailing the rules and regulations of use, stipulation of clear and detailed rules of operation, a clear understanding that the rink is for unstructured recreation use only and that organized practice and games are prohibited, a firm commitment by the volunteer operators to abide by and enforce rules of operation as stipulated, including a statement of understanding that any further future approval is contingent upon this and the continued support of the area residents. At this point in time, I am going to ask any resident, and it's residents only of that area, if they would show of hand of who would like to make a statement. Go ahead, sir. And you'll be up first, and then we'll let the two other residents. Who else? There's 1, 2, 3 other residents. Go ahead. Please state your name. You have a 5-minute speaking time.
Hi, everybody. We live at 1842 Gordon Miles Place. That's the place where the rink was placed right against it, immediate proximity to. And just to express our experience, we're all for hockey, we're all for the kids being engaged. However, imagine having an ice rink put into your own residence, for like 4 months or so, a year, and you essentially lose most of the use of your residence because the noise, even during the regular hours, on the weekends, you can stay there because the pucks, when they go off the boards, acoustics is incredible, and a few people who were inside our residence could testify to that. So, and well, as was mentioned by the city report there were a few instances where the undertakings of the rink operator were not met. However, back then when the city manager, I believe former city manager, who is not here anymore, asked me, well, what do we want to do? I said the rink was constructed already, so we'll just pretty much suck it up, but we were assured that coming next year, the location will not be the same, for obvious reasons. So, and that was our impression. So if the rink is moved to the opposite side, that's fine, as long as there is no immediate proximity to other residences, but then again, I'm not going to speak for them. But from our perspective, the rink's location where it was last year is unacceptable. So.
But moving it to the south side would be acceptable?
The opposite side? To
the south side. It'd be south, because it wouldn't be across this way, it would be kind of turned like a...
As long as it's not backing up directly again onto our property.
Right, it'd be at the very far end of your property. would be the back.
Right, not like it was last year, where it was spanning the entire length of the property, and you would wake up to the sounds, those stomping sounds of the pucks going off the boards, and it was pretty competitive games. And then, sometimes you would be awakened by Zamboni pretty late. So, and that's pretty much it.
Next. Please state your name, please.
Your Honorship, my name is Mark Masal. I was up here very briefly before, and some of the things I just heard actually are totally wrong. If the rink was located to the south, the lights would be more in the direction of that particular person's home. I right now currently have the rink lights facing directly into my home, and they do not bother me. I can hear the pucks, they do not bother me. There's 300-400 kids that use that rink compared to one person that maybe has a disagreement with it. I think it's ridiculous. Like I said before, we have the garage that Mr. Bernie graciously opens up. Kids can get heated. We're out there minus 30, minus 40. This is hockey. This is Saskatchewan. That's what we do. We love to play hockey. We love to be outside. But you get cold when it's minus 30, minus 40. You can quickly pop into his garage. You can warm up. You pop back out. I just think every argument is ridiculous. You could be in the outdoor rink. You could be in the sports arena, the Coliseum. There's kids fooling around. There might be a kid jumping a fence. That happens everywhere. And there's nothing that Mr. Bernie can do about that, no matter if it's in the south end, the east end, the west end. Doesn't matter. The kids are going to fool around if they're going to be, like that. So I don't think it really matters. The rink right now is located in the best possible spot for everybody in that area, for all the kids who are going to actually use that rink. So.
I'll have you speak last, if you would, Mr. Bernie, if you would. Next speaker. I'll just have you speak last, if you would, please, okay? Go ahead.
Shane Pollock. I guess one thing we need to keep in mind too is it is a park. So, when you purchase a house adjacent to a park, I think you somewhat have to expect some noise. Whether it's kids playing soccer, whether it's kids playing baseball, football, whatever the case may be, hockey. I mean, there are going to be those times where there are those noises, kids laughing, playing. I'm not sure if there's any complaints in the summertime. I know my daughter's out there 10:30 at night sometimes with her friends playing. So if a soccer ball gets kicked over the fence, if a baseball went over the fence, if a football went over the fence, is it the same complaint? So I do think you have to keep that in mind, that your house does back onto a park, and you have to expect that there will be some noise once in a while. So thank you.
Mr. Bernie?
Barrett's up.
Oh, Barrett. Yeah.
My name is Barrett Anderson. I have a property across the back alley from one of the end boards from where the rink was, and I honestly don't think I saw a set of footprints in my yard from somebody hopping over the fence to get a puck. There was, my fence was lined with pucks. There was never, ever somebody hopping over. I think I counted 7 in my yard this year. It's just hockey being hockey, right? Kids shooting around. Like I said, I don't think I saw any pucks or any footprints in my yard where somebody would come over, and my dog lets us know when there's somebody in the yard, so nobody was ever in our yard. As far as, pucks bouncing off the boards, we got the sound that everybody in the park gets, and it was never to the point where it was disturbing what we were doing at the house. There's always enough noise in the house to drown it out. As far as late nights, there was never anything that interfered with putting the kids to sleep or any of our family activities. It was always early enough that we found that we were never concerned about it. Just like I was saying, being across the alley from one of the end boards, you're going to get a lot of shots off that end board and a lot of noise coming through, and it was never enough that I was concerned enough about it. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to go over some facts. Fact number one, this is a decibel meter. This measures sound of noise. My slap shot yesterday against my fence was 87 decibels. The wind outside today is 92. A snow blower used to clean a driveway. I took a video of it today. Comes in at 110 decibels. Okay? For anybody that's using a snow blower on their driveway, 110. Slap shot against the boards, 82. Okay? Last year I agreed to put up 24-hour, 7-day-a-week surveillance. I've streamed through thousands and thousands of hours of surveillance on that rink. I have yet to see one kid climb anybody's fence. It has a broad view of my fence, Barrett's fence, 1844's house fence, 24-hour surveillance. I welcome anybody to come review it with me to actually see which kid climbed the fence. I don't believe there was a kid that climbed the fence. I don't know. That's all I can say on that topic. The lighting issues, as per your diagram, councillors, as is the lighting face east. The street light puts off more lumens to the north side of 1844's house than all my lights put together. And they're in the opposite direction of 1844's house. Vandalism, damage, noise, there was no reports to our Weyburn City Police. I believe one of the councillors talked to the police. They were patrolling the area 3 days a week, roughly, approximately. We didn't have one police report. We didn't have one complaint from the police. Zero. This project, I know there's a bunch of adults up here talking. This project isn't for us. This is for the kids sitting on the carpet, patiently waiting to get this approved so they can skate. The schedule of the rink is attached in your package. Public skating right now on the weekdays is scheduled from 1:15 p.m. to 2:15, I believe, maybe 2:30. Not one single kid that is here on the carpet today can go public skating in Weyburn on a weekday because they're in school. That's why we need this rink. That's why this rink has to be put on the west side of Gordon Miles Place. It's not for the adults, it's for the kids. The kids want to skate, the kids want to play hockey, the kids want to have fun. Yes, I did run the Zamboni past 11 o'clock last year. I'll tell you why. I invited St. Michael's grade 2 children to the rink in the middle of March. The weather went above zero the night before. It was +4. The ice was destroyed. I had 74 kids from the stool coming the next morning. What did I have to do? I had to wait until the temperature dropped below freezing to go out and flood the ice. I waited till 2:30 in the morning. I set my alarm. I grabbed the Zamboni. I shaved an inch of ice off. That got me down to fresh ice. I put a fresh flood on. That's why I ran the Zamboni once past 11 p.m. last night. Again, I ask you, councillors, Mr. Mayor, make the motion, approve the rink, 10:30 curfew. That gives me an hour or a half an hour to clean the ice after the skaters at 10 p.m. That's all I got. Thank you.
Mr. Bailey, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Bernie, I just have a couple questions for you, if you could, please. I live very close across the back alley, about midway on the north of this property.
Okay.
Coming home from work, not many times, but a half a dozen times, maybe half a dozen times, slide by, and the activity was tremendous. Kids from here to here. We do need those things. And this project, when we looked at it a year ago, was an experiment for us. And but in considering some opposition to it, we have to have consideration for that gentleman and the homeowner of 1844, obviously. My question to you is, and I don't know where that play structure lines up in there, is there any possibility from the current outdoor rink status in the black mark there, and I don't know where this particular window is in this gentleman's home that is spoke about being an issue. Is there any way that that could be angled offset to the east, on the south side, just east, to come across the front of that play structure area? Is that possible? I'm asking, just don't know. And my theory behind that is to get it a little further distance from his house and maybe from the window that we're talking about.
I can't figure out if this thing's on or off. Yeah, so you're saying move it the whole rink east, or?
No, just if you take the rink and it's sitting like this, if you just twisted it, okay, towards the play structure. If you took the south end of the existing, where you had it last year, and just moved that to the play structure to create a larger buffer between the gentleman's house and your rink.
I believe so. Last year, the east side of the outdoor rink was actually set on top of the 4x4s. The 4x4s are the barrier that keep the rubber inside the play structure. We ran right over top of the 4x4. There is about 8 to 12 more feet before you run into, I think, the monkey bars or the slide. So yes, we can slide it over probably, I'm going to say 4 to 5, 6 feet maybe, but as long as everybody realizes that will be over top of the rubber and the 4x4 barrier. So I will be into the play structure. Now there's nothing structurally sound that will stop the boards or I'll have to go around. It'll just be inside the rubber.
Okay, for just on that portion.
Yes.
Just to create a greater buffer area?
Yeah. Last year we were 3 feet away from 1844 fence. Yep. Max we could probably go is probably 6. So we'd buy another 3 feet. If I could get 6 feet in, I could probably get a piece of machinery in between his fence and the boards to actually pack more snow up to create a sound barrier.
Just a thought, just an option.
Yep.
Mr. Mickle.
Thank you, Worship. First of all, I want to thank everyone for coming this evening for a very important project, and thank for the work that you put in it. And the gentleman that poses this, I understand certainly where you come from, sir. However, my world as a counselor has a lot to do with the word called compromise. And I think we can compromise the situation without relocating the rink. I think relocating it is going to be more disaster than we have now, as we think. And it isn't really a disaster. We have to be flexible with the times. It's 11, you say 10, class says 9:30. I say 10 o'clock. However, as I talked to you yesterday, Ryan, we put a foot around those boards last year for snow. Mm-hmm. If we come level with those boards on the outside, our sound effect is done.
Yes.
That has to be done, especially against 1844. And that'll help you, sir. It really will. And as you stated before, adults are here making a decision. It's the young people that I'm concerned about. And I know the gentleman in 1844 feels the same way. He bought a house by the park. It is what it is. But I think compromise, we can work this out, and we're all going to benefit by it. But keep an ear to it, and I think there's room for progress. I like the idea, but the statute gives us, my goodness, now we got to have other rinks in Weyburn. You know what? We do. We have Riverview, we have Creekside, Brad, we have Douglas Heights, areas where we can put these outdoor rinks and take the pressure off individuals like you who put your butt off and financially to make this happen.
I had a lot of help from these people.
I know you did, and the group here, and I appreciate you people a lot. So I think, sir, compromise can be worked out, and I think we have to move forward.
Mr. Wheeler. Mr. Wheeler?
Mr. Bernie, I commend you for taking the initiative to do a project like this. In the city, you're never going to please the entire civilian group, but I grew up in an area in Alberta where every community had an outdoor rink and they were always busy. I myself live backing onto a park, and I would more than welcome a facility like this in my backyard. I have no kids at home anymore, but I believe that the youth are the backbone of our community. They're the future of the community, and I think the more we provide them to entertain themselves and stay out of trouble, I think it's in our best interest to supply activities like this. Like I said, you're never going to please everybody, but in my opinion, you've done a great job and all the people associated with it. I give you credit because it is a major undertaking. And you did mention that you did have corporations approach you about possibly funding this, and I think it's an avenue that we should look at. I remember growing up in the 70s, I went all the way from the east end of town up to South Hill to play on the ice rink up there. That's where all my friends were, and it was a great facility. And those days are gone. Like we have one rink by the junior high, and I really appreciate what you've done.
Thank you. We have numerous community people that want to do this in other areas, but we're scaring them right now from doing it. The other main fact that I'd like to point out, if you look at your Swift Current and Regina sheets that you got in your package, those are all city funded and city maintained. We have taken the responsibility away from the city. We've taken the financial responsibility away from the city through corporate donations. A lot of our own money, hard work, and sweat went into this, and we just want to keep it going. We don't want to burden you guys with this project. We got it. We got it. It ran smooth last year. We just want the opportunity to keep going, and I would like a multi-year approval tonight, maybe 3 or 5.
Thanks, Your Worship. Thanks, Ryan, and thanks everybody for coming, and thanks for nobody wearing a Maple Leafs jersey. I thought Curtis Barrasso would have one on, but he didn't. He showed up in an Oilers jersey. I want to echo what all these guys said. Kudos to you, and I think, Ryan, that what you've done here should be a model for what we're doing, and I hope more people come to us and say, let us do this, and let us do it the way that it needs to be done and do it right. So you have my full support. The question I have of you, and that I probably have of Claude as well, when you talked about a skating pad, so that it would sort of take some of the pressure off the rink, I'm not sure that I understand that well enough, and I don't know if you can even book our current outdoor rink. Like, could I phone the city and book that out for the afternoon?
No, I don't believe it's a first come, first serve basis. That's how we ran last year. We did run a couple minor hockey practices on it last year. They went well. There was 10 other kids on the ice when we went to practice. We actually said, you guys can stay on the ice. We're not booting you off the rink, but you got to do our drills. And then there was 10 older kids. We had a shinny game against all the novice kids against the 10-year-olds. So it was kind of cool. But I was worried about complaints of little kids being on the ice with bigger kids and figure skaters being on the ice with hockey players. I think the skating pad, which is what Swift Current does on every single outdoor rink, all 5 of them, that's how they get to 10 and 11 ice surfaces. They put a skating pad beside the outdoor rink. So my garage is still opened up. Come in, tie your skates, enjoy the hot chocolate, enjoy the heat. If you're 5 years old and there's a bunch of bantams out there ripping slap shots, you're probably going to want to go skate on the skating pad, right? And vice versa. If you're the bantam kids and you show up and there's 12 figure skaters on the ice, hey, you guys got to play with the puck and on the skating pad until the figure skaters leave. It just gives us an option to, rid the congestion and the conflict of ages, right?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I think that's probably the part that we're going to have to wrestle with the most. Okay. As a council, is how do we do that and make sure that everybody gets an equal opportunity to it? But
yeah, for sure.
Kudos to you guys.
Thank you.
Mr. Moran, could you take the stand, please, for a minute? Flipping back to my old days. Regressing.
Thank you.
Yeah, regressing. Yes. What I would like to know is, on the south side, and it has been stated that the south side would be somewhat cramped. Could the rink be pushed into the alley? Seeing the lanes are basically not being used, opened in there, could the rink be pushed into the alley, 2 meters, 3 meters into the alley?
I guess it could be, Your Worship. Again, I'm not 100% certain that would be a great idea, but you know, the lanes aren't used in the wintertime. They aren't utilized. It's doable. I just don't know if I would recommend it.
But it's doable because they're not being used. We don't open the lanes anyway in the wintertime.
We don't, but come February, March, and just in advance of the spring thaw, we do put our equipment through all the lanes in order to remove the snow and facilitate drainage out of the lanes. So that could impact that portion.
But so long as you have enough room left open for a skid steer to get through there for drainage?
Well, actually, it's not a skid steer. We either use a grader or a loader. So we need pretty much the width of the lane and to put that equipment.
But again, if you go home down to a skid steer size, we can still do that?
I'm not sure a skid steer would do it, Your Worship, because we need to open up the edges of the lane. That's where the drainage is cut. Like, that's the way the lanes are graded to drain at the edges. So I'm not sure a skid steer would.
But we would be able to move into the lane somewhat?
Yes, you could.
Mr. Van Betje.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think probably the biggest thing this evening has shown me is that the city has a responsibility probably to put more rinks out for the community to use. We have this many people here from a small area of the city, so we have a lot of, and the rest of the city, we also have a lot of interested hockey players, skaters, etc. And maybe we are lacking for outdoor ice surfaces for sure. As it stands, I could not support this decision. I think if you have one resident that is not happy with the position of this rink, then I think we have to appreciate that and we have to come to a compromise and talk to this gentleman and see if we can make it work in that property. I think it's unfair to him to say that it's not, you can't decide for somebody what is too light, what is too loud. I know a few years ago, as a city council, we turned down we made a windmill come down because it was bothering one person. And I think this is a similar situation. This gentleman did not buy this house with the anticipation of a hockey rink being beside him. And I think it's incumbent that we talk to him and see if there's a compromise. And I think if not, then it's also the responsibility of the city to provide recreation areas for other ice surfaces.
Mr. Moore. I was going to just, and how fast would it be to build the city to get things? We're way out of the season here now. We're way too long. This year wouldn't go. Mr. Mickle.
Your Worship, I'm prepared to make a motion this evening. I think there's enough information that has surfaced. Hopefully, I haven't got everything, the wording properly, but the next one will correct it. A motion to proceed with the outdoor rink at Gordon Mile Place, same location as 2016-17. Time issue of closing is 10 a.m. And also in the motion, 10 p.m., I'm sorry. Also in the motion would be a second learning ice surface for pre-skaters where Ryan had pointed out beside his property with a one-year contract.
Do you have a second?
I'll second it, Your Worship, but I'd like to speak to it as well.
Okay, go ahead.
Councillor Mickle, you didn't mention in there, you did mention about the second piece, that practice pad. I don't have the name right, sorry. Yeah. But you haven't addressed so we let a team then book this rink?
I think those details, I think, Councillor Richard, can be worked out between Ryan and Claude in the parks.
And that's more my concern, is make sure we got some logistics around this so that if I want to rent it, maybe I'm going to phone Ryan, I don't know, but maybe I'm supposed to phone the Parks Department. And so we have to do some communications around the logistics of if somebody's going to book out this ice surface.
No, you're right there, but I think the biggest issue here is to let these people tonight either to proceed or not to proceed. That's more of an issue, the placement of it, and as I mentioned in my motion.
Mr. Van Betju?
I just like to just reiterate my point that I can't believe you're letting somebody put a rink beside someone's house who does not want it there. If it was somebody else that was putting something beside your house, Mr. Mickle, that you didn't like, I think you would be upset. And you also voted in favor when we tore down this person's windmill because the light was affecting one person.
Absolutely, I voted against the windmill, but Councillor Van Betju, let's get on the topic. It's for individual children that I see sitting around this chamber this evening. And as I told Ryan and his committee before, if there were 5 or 6 people, or maybe 4 people in that neighborhood that did not like what was going on, my thought process was change. Adults here can do all the talking they want. I'm for the children of this community that we're holding back because of one individual, and I think compromise, we can do this. With the sound effect on those boards, will certainly deaden the sound at this location where the rink. Councillor Betcher, I'm going to ask you a question. Have you been over to see this rink yet?
Yes, I was there several times last year, Councillor Mickle.
Good.
But I just think rather than pass it tonight, why can't we speak with this resident and see if there is a compromise with the location or to just say that, oh, we'll put a little more snow out there, that'll block the sound. That doesn't do it for me because it might or it might not, and he lived through that last year. I think we should speak to him before we pass this motion and come to a compromise first.
I disagree, Councillor Van Betju. If they're going to do this project, they're not going to wait for 2 weeks to make a decision. It's either we do it or we don't.
Mr. Bailey.
Thank you, Your Worship. I got such mixed feelings on it. I have a responsibility to 1844, as you're saying, Councillor Van Betju, and I would also like to see some consultation with that gentleman. I am not opposed to this rink going in, but Lord forbid it snows next week and we have ice. That's not going to happen. We're not going to get ice here until December, most likely, Councillor Mickle. So I think we have a short time frame here to negotiate something with that homeowner to make sure that that we have it worked out. I know the boards have to go up before the ground freezes and everything like that. I understand that time frame of it, but we got to get it right. I feel for the individual. I want every one of those kids on the ice 3 hours every night to have fun and play and develop. And but I have to respect 1844 homeowner also.
Mr. Richards?
Thanks, Your Worship. You guys are right. I mean, I don't think that anybody's saying that the homeowner's concerns should be disregarded. I don't think any of us are saying that whatsoever. I think what we're saying is these guys, if they're going to do this rink, probably want to get going, I'm thinking, pretty quick. And maybe, Your Worship, you let Ryan speak to that in a second. But we want to get, they need to know if they're going to do this or not. And if we say no, they might start looking at a different location. Or they might say, you know, we're not going to do this. And maybe Ryan's got somebody who wants to buy that Zamboni and this whole thing goes away. So I think it's okay for us to make a decision, and to the homeowner, you're absolutely right, sir. You deserve to be consulted and you deserve to be heard on this. We were talking on the way in here, just coming up the stairs, a couple of us had a young WHL player grow up right next door to us, and his dad put a rink in his backyard, and we listened to those pucks till 11, 12, 1 in the morning sometimes, and we had pucks in our yard and pucks in the alley and pucks on the driveway, and he let my kids go skate on the rink sometimes, and they probably did damage, right? And I understand that. So I think we could still hear your concerns, but I think these guys need to know if they can put a rink up or not.
Now, as the rules, go ahead, Mr. Van Betju.
I think discussion after the decision is made is totally wrong. The gentleman came here to voice his complaints. I think maybe the residents probably should have spoke to him and talked about compromise before if they hadn't. But I think he's come here to voice his complaints and to make a decision and expect to have discussion after the fact. I don't think that's the correct process.
Speaking of process, if again, as to what the parliamentary rules are, seeing that the people have had their time to speak and there was council now, if we wish to allow Mr. Bernie and the doctor to speak one last time, it has to be an unanimous vote by all council members. Do you wish to allow the doctor to say one last closing comment and Mr. Bernie to say last comment?
Your worship, do you need a motion to that effect?
Yes.
Well, I'd make a motion that we would allow them each another couple
5 minutes.
5 minutes, is that what it is?
5 minutes.
To sort of sum up their case.
I'll second that, Your worship.
All in favor? Favor. Who wishes to go first? Mr. Bernie, you go first. Doctor, you can sum up and have the last bat, so to speak.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors. I believe tonight I showed up with hard facts. I had the right equipment. I presented the numbers. The noise isn't an issue. The noise levels, you say, Mr. Councillor, that everybody's opinion with noise is different. Well, OH&S disagrees with you. There is solid noise level numbers through Occupation Health and Safety, which were below. Anyway, again, thank you all for the support with the kids. And this is a total kid project. All we're trying to do is put kids on the ice. To address your concerns of moving, or your idea of moving it to the south, please keep in mind that the boards are 4.5 feet tall. If I build snow up to that 4.5 feet, it's going to stretch out about 8 or 9 feet away from the boards. You don't just push snow up and it's done. You got to angle it out. There's brackets to go on the boards until it's froze in. I will have that alley completely blocked. I run 10-foot 2x4s from the top of the boards 10 feet away down to a stake. This stabilizes the rink so nobody gets hurt until snowfall. Once the snowfall happens, I push all the snow up to the boards, we flood it, and we freeze it into place. So it does take a little bit of time. We are time restricted. If it freezes, if we get -5, -7, -8 for a week until a decision's made, we're not going to be able to drive stakes. We'll have steam trucks and hot water out there on thawing ground. We'll make probably a heck of a mess. We do have to stake the boards in. I wanted to get going on this about a week and a half ago. It was my fault. I missed the October 10th meeting. I wasn't quite prepared, so we had to wait for tonight. So we are looking for a decision tonight. I planned on hauling the boards into Weyburn tomorrow afternoon, start laying them out and doing any repairs for this upcoming season.
You'd be acceptable to the south side if we gave you the alley?
I just don't know how it's going to work, because I got to put those brackets down on the one side, right?
You'd be able to take the whole alley up?
Yeah, it would be completely blocked from probably the day we put the boards up until, I think we took them down May 3rd last year, I want to say.
That would be acceptable to you?
Pardon me?
Location would be acceptable if you allowed it?
I got 100 feet of snow removal to get the Zamboni to the boards. The kids got to walk 150 feet to the warm-up shack. It's not optimum by any means.
Not optimum, but acceptable? I know. I'm just looking for a compromise here.
Yeah. Last year's plan was very well thought out. Sprinklers, irrigation, nothing was hit. I don't know where the power lines, the underground power lines run, but I'm assuming they go from green box to green box to green box and Y out from there. We put the rink on the south side. Sask Power's got to come dig up a power line. We're probably going to have a mess.
Good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks again. And, well, just to put things into perspective, again, it's about compromise. And I'm a little puzzled because back a year ago when I did sign the petition supporting this project, there were 2 plans presented to me, one of which is now recommended by the city. But somehow, I guess, it's not good enough anymore, but a year ago, it was on the books. So anyway, again, from our perspective is, as much as we support the community, but you do have to take into consideration individual residents. And I did send to the city over the course of the year some both audio and visual files, which as evidence that things which were presented to us did not quite play out 100%. I'm just trying to be diplomatic here. So, and for instance, we were assured that the net would be up until they start shooting packs. It wasn't up until a week after they did, after we brought it up to the city. So, but again, we're not here to dwell on what happened in the past. We're here to move forward. And to me, the best option would be to go with the city's proposal, which would be acceptable compromise for everybody. And again, like I said, a year ago, that was on the plan when I did sign that petition. So, but somehow that location is not good enough anymore, which is a little puzzling.
So, well, they have to, it would be acceptable to you for your, to have it on the south side.
Right, on the other side.
Yeah, back way to the south.
Correct.
Not where it was short, there. Go ahead.
Sir, when they say the south side, like, I don't know if you've seen this map.
No, I haven't. I just got here late.
That, I don't know if we can put it up on the big screen or whatever, but that would put one of the boards then, like, well, sorry, no, one of the boards, Jeff. That would run the rink directly towards your yard rather than parallel to your yard. So I don't know, and I know, Ryan, you can't come up and speak again because we've got to follow procedure here, but I think that would be in contravention to trying to dull this noise for you, because I think more shots would get taken towards the end of the rink than at the side of the rink.
The way it is here now. All right. And then this would be here to the south. So it would be into your backyard.
Well, it's better than it is. Well, again, it's a compromise, so, but from what I see from this plan, that would be, again, a better option.
Oh, it would be, okay.
Mr. Mickle?
Thank you, Worship. Thanks very much. You got time for one more question, sir?
Sure.
No, I appreciate you coming. So is a time factor of 10 o'clock acceptable to you versus 11?
Well, actually, more like 9:30 as city recommended.
Okay, and then 9:30, okay. So you'd accept 9:30 versus 10?
Well, yeah, just like per city proposal, that's right.
And you're picking option 2. So,
well,
this I call this option 1. That's there now.
This is
now. That was last year. This one here.
This one, right?
Right here.
Right.
That one there.
Yeah, which is further away.
Okay. But you okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
We, unfortunately, as the rules are going, you have to wait onto there. The question now becomes to the council as to what they want to do. And I guess the other one is that it'd have to, by doing that, we'd have to encroach onto the alley and make sure, and that would have to be acceptable, that the alley would be blocked off starting in here in May.
Oh, Your Worship, this is the problem I have with the alley, and I speak to this from experience. We use our back alley to get our RV in and out. And there was one winter when the Parks Department didn't get enough snow out of there in the spring, like what Superintendent Morin is describing. And for whatever reason, and I don't know, it was a year that we had a lot of snow and there was just too much. And that alley was a disaster the entire year. And I don't know whether, Claude, you want to come back up and speak to that, but I think what you were saying is there would have to be a pretty out there circumstance before you'd want to restrict access to that alley until April or May.
Yes, that's correct. It could go there and it would block the lane, but drainage could become an issue. You know, that's a hypothetical. We don't know what kind of winter we're going to have, what kind of snowfall we're going to have, but having the rink on the lane could create issues, not that they will.
Yeah, my expectation, Your Worship, is that might create another group of people out here in the spring saying, you can't do that again because you flooded all of our yards because these guys weren't able to get that snow out of there.
But again, those are hypotheticals that the could-haves and see until we see what happened. Last year, we tried this. We found that there was too much noise along this side, as to which Mr. Bambetu was talking, that there was issues. This year, by putting it over there, and then you can see whether or not there are drainage issues. Then we can only see every time we test. This is not a pure science here as to what we're doing, correct? This is not a pure science, not that it is. Anybody else, statements? Mr. Van Betje, you want to, would a south side, wouldn't be acceptable to you?
I would suggest that we could maybe grant approval based on the agreement between the resident that has the problem and the rest of the group. If he comes to an agreement and says, you know, they meet tomorrow and says, yep, that's okay, I agree to that it's okay to go ahead, and then there would be no delay till another council meeting. But I do think that
the rink is sized, the boards are constructed, it will not fit on the south side. We have to rip all the boards, all the corners apart to make it work. It's not, it's sized specifically to go where it was approved last year.
I have a question to Ryan. It could be moved, though, further away from 1844?
Yes.
How far can you go?
I'm going to assume, I'm going to guess, Dick, 5 to 7 feet.
So you get a pretty good snow pile in there. That will knock the sound down tremendously.
Correct.
Would that be acceptable?
We're going, and I think
we got to get close.
Okay, I was going to say that, you know what, I think that here at council, this is not where we're going to, I would recommend we do what Mr. Van Betje states, that these people have to get together tomorrow and we base our recommend. Go ahead.
I just have one more question. Ryan, the net, is it actually on the north side or can it be relocated to the south side?
Sorry?
The net. I imagine it's going, you're going, right now you're showing the net on the north side. Does that have to be there?
The nets are on the north and the south side of the
Okay,
curb.
so there is two nets. It's not
Yes,
just half.
yes.
Okay.
Yes. They're official NHL hockey nets that were donated by PureChem Services.
Okay, I was just, the way it's illustrated here, I thought
I
there was
think
just
he means
one
the
end.
netting above the boards.
Oh,
No,
sorry.
I was actually talking the goal net.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
But the netting above the, around the boards, that was late getting installed last year, but that will be installed at the beginning.
Amazon failed me with the delivery time.
Yeah, that's all I had, sir.
What was your recommendation for the amendment to the
my recommendation would be that we grant approval based on a agreed-upon compromise between the resident and the rest of the group.
Mr. Richards?
Sorry, Councilor Bambetu, I don't know how to measure agreed upon. I feel like we could be talking about this in December, about agreed upon, because I think that, I'm just not sure, how do we agree upon? So you're looking for a written sort of, from both parties saying this is the construction, this is the sort of timeframes, this is all of that written out and signed off?
I would say location is probably the biggest issue, but yes, I would say that both would have to agree to it.
Within a time frame, and then if not?
By the end of the week.
And then if not, if they're not able to come to agreement by the end, I don't know the doctor's schedule, maybe he's out of town tomorrow. I don't know. But, I mean, what if they aren't able to? Are we going to get back involved again, or are we done?
Hold on the motion.
Just before we proceed, Doctor, are you available, when are you available to have a sit-down and discussion?
Next couple of days.
Next couple of days, through the day?
Correct.
Through the day? Okay.
Well, late afternoon.
Late afternoon? In the evening? Mr. Bernie, are you able to attend?
I'm here all week until this gets done.
Okay, late afternoon. Is tomorrow afternoon? What does tomorrow afternoon look like? Or is it Wednesday afternoon? Which one's better?
Tomorrow should be good.
Tomorrow afternoon? What time? 5?
Sure.
5 o'clock, City Hall?
Sure.
5 o'clock, City Hall? Mr. Richards, will you attend?
I can't. I'd love to, but I can't be here tomorrow.
Mr. Wheeler?
I should be able to.
Mr. Van Betch, okay. But at least 3 of us will be there tomorrow afternoon at 5 o'clock to moderate. Mr. Mickle, in there, okay. At that point in time, then, if you wish to make amend the motion as to the, that we approve it
Okay.
as per the agreement set out tomorrow.
Yes, I'll amend that motion.
Second?
Is that how we do it? I don't know. No, I
Or
think
do
you
it?
have to repeat it.
No, actually, the movers must agree to the amendment, otherwise the vote, we
Okay.
must vote on the
I
current
was going
motion.
to say, movers, or are you going to
I
agree?
made the motion.
Do you agree to the amendment?
I'm having trouble with the amendment, Your Worship. I think we're back to square one again tomorrow night. There's a motion on the floor. Either you go with the motion or you vote against the motion. That's why we had the dialogue with all these people. Now we're pushing it back for another day. There's a lot of compromise we've talked about. Time, we can settle that. I said 10, you want an amendment to 9:30? We can work that, but to have another day meeting, I won't support that. Decision has to be made tonight with all the facts presented right here.
And the clearness of the motion, what I want to know is read the motion out again, because the clearness of the motion is to the placement. That's what it is, has to be. It has to be in the placement. And that's why we wanted to defeat this motion and then have it, the motion that Mr. Van Betcher was going to say, so we can agree, come to a compromise and an agreement with all parties involved.
I think, Your Worship, if we're going to compromise on location where it was last year and move it further away from 1844 would be the compromise. If we can pick up 5 to 6 feet, that's a compromise, and then put snow to sound barrier to help that, plus the shut time at 9:30. Would you accept 9:30, Ryan? Sure. It's got to start someplace. It's compromise. Again, but we have to make that, that's part of my motion. It was said 10 o'clock, it's 9:30. And relocate to where it was last year, Your Worship, move it over east 5 to 6 feet. We can gain away from 1844. 1-year contract again.
Would 5 to 6 feet over be acceptable or not?
I stayed in my position.
Stay in position. Then what I would still wish to have the meeting afterwards, but so what we'll do is we'll do it this way. To get this off the floor, we had the motion that you stand here would have to be defeated, and then we go first on the other one, so that Mr. Van Betcher could make a different motion. So we start off again. You made the motion, you second the motion. All in favor? Opposed? So the motion is carried. On to there.
Just a point of clarity, Your Worship, are the parties still coming together tomorrow at 5 o'clock to try to address any of these issues?
You defeated that. So with that, and that again is that the motion is it's moving over onto there. We go forward. The next one is, there's no choirs and announcements, no notice of motions, no committee of whole. With that, we call this meeting adjourned.